Listen to me. Before you can rebuild yourself, you got to deal with the rubble. You can't walk around acting like everything is okay when deep down inside you know you're broken. You know you're hurting. You know you failed. You know you fell. But you want everybody to believe that nothing happened. And that's why you keep going in circles. That's why you keep repeating the same cycle. Because you never stop long enough to admit, I'm broken right now. I'm not where I want to be. I lost something. I messed up. Until you face it, you can't fix it. Until you clean up the rubble, you can't rebuild. Some of you are trying to build a new life on top of lies. You're stacking bricks on top of broken glass. You're painting over cracks instead of repairing the foundation. And then you wonder why every time you try to stand tall, it collapses again. You wonder why the relationships don't last, why the discipline doesn't stick, why the money doesn't stay, why the happiness doesn't feel real. It's because you never cleared the ground. You never faced the truth. You never said, this part of me is damaged. This habit is toxic. This environment is killing me. You got to tear it all the way down before you can put something solid in its place. I'm telling you, there's power in being honest with yourself. Stop acting like you're fine when you cry yourself to sleep at night. Stop acting like you're winning when you know you're tired of losing. Stop posting like you're living when you know you're barely surviving. That's the rubble. And the rubble has to be acknowledged. You got to walk right into that mess and say, yeah, this is my life right now. This is what I did. This is what happened to me. This is where I am. But don't stop there. Don't camp out in the rubble. The rubble is not your final destination. It's just the starting point for your rebuild. The hardest thing you'll ever do is look at the ruins of your own life and not run from it. Because facing it means you gotta own your mistakes. You gotta own your choices. You gotta own your attitude. You can't blame everybody else. You can't put it all on your past. You can't hide behind excuses anymore. And that's uncomfortable. That's painful. But you can't heal what you refuse to reveal. You can't rebuild what you won't acknowledge is broken. I need you to get this in your spirit. Demolition comes before construction. If you've ever seen a building site, before they put up the steel and the concrete, they first knock down everything that's weak, unstable, unsafe. They clear the land until there's nothing left but bare ground. That's what some of you need to do with your life. Tear down the pride. Tear down the lies. Tear down the fake image you're trying so hard to protect. Tear down the habits that don't serve you. Tear down the excuses that keep you comfortable. You can't build something beautiful if you keep holding on to the debris. And I know it hurts. It hurts to admit you wasted years. It hurts to admit you trusted the wrong people. It hurts to admit you gave up on yourself. But that pain is the very thing that will push you into transformation. Pain is not your enemy. It's your signal that something has to change. That rubble you see, it's not the end of you. It's the raw material for the new you. Every broken piece is proof that you survived what tried to destroy you. Every scar is proof that you made it out alive. And now with all that experience, all that wisdom, all that strength, you have what it takes to rebuild bigger and stronger than before. But here's the truth. You can't carry yesterday's bricks into tomorrow's building. You gotta let go of what broke you so you can pick up what will build you. Stop romanticizing the past. Stop going back to the same patterns that already failed you. Stop thinking you can rebuild without sacrifice. If it didn't work before, it won't work now. You have to clear the site and start fresh. You've been praying for a new life, but God can't give you a new foundation until you surrender the old one. You've been asking for change, but you refuse to let go of what's familiar. You keep holding on to the rubble, but the rubble is not your home. It's just evidence that something ended. And sometimes endings are the gift, because endings force new beginnings. So today, I need you to stop pretending. I need you to stop running. I need you to stop covering up the cracks. Face your rubble. Face your brokenness. Face your reality. Because the moment you get real with where you are is the moment you open the door to where you could be. The rubble doesn't define you. It refines you. And once you've cleared it, you'll finally have room to build the life you were meant to live. That's where the rebuild begins. When you rebuild, the most important thing you got to understand is this: you cannot rebuild on the same shaky ground that broke you the first time. You can't rebuild on emotions. You can't rebuild on motivation alone, because motivation comes and goes. You can't rebuild on hype, on feelings, on waiting until you feel like it. That's why so many people keep starting over and over, but never finishing. The foundation was wrong from the jump. If you want this time to last, if you want this rebuild to stand, when the storms hit, then your foundation has to be discipline. Discipline is not sexy. Discipline is not flashy. Discipline doesn't make you feel good in the moment. But discipline is what keeps you consistent when the feelings fade. Discipline is what makes you get up at 5 a.m. when you don't want to. Discipline is what makes you put the phone down and focus when distraction is calling your name. Discipline is what makes you stick to the plan even when everything in you wants to quit. If you want to rebuild that lasts, your concrete has to be discipline, not emotion. Some of you keep saying, I'll do it when I feel motivated. That's why you never get it done. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Motivation makes you dream. Discipline makes you do. You can't build a house on a cloud. You can't build your future on inspiration that only shows up once in a while. You need something that won't move, something that won't crack when pressure comes. That's discipline. Every time you see somebody successful, every time you see somebody consistent, don't get it twisted. They're not always motivated. They don't always feel like grinding. They don't always feel like working. But what they have is discipline. And discipline says, I do it whether I feel like it or not. That's the difference. That's the secret. That's the foundation. The truth is, you've already tried rebuilding without discipline. You've already tried setting goals and relying on excitement to carry you. And what happened? You started strong. You felt good for a week, maybe 2, and then life hit. Distractions came. Temptations came. Fatigue came. And because you didn't have discipline, everything crumbled. You don't need another hype speech. You don't need another burst of energy. You need discipline in your life. You need to stop negotiating with yourself. Stop bargaining with your laziness. Stop making excuses for why you didn't do it today. Discipline doesn't ask for your permission. It demands your obedience. I need you to picture a building again. The taller the skyscraper, the deeper the foundation has to go. If you're trying to build a small shack, maybe you can get away with a weak base. But if you're trying to build a life that stands tall, if you're trying to build a future that can carry weight, if you're trying to build something that will outlast you, your foundation has to be unshakable. That's what discipline gives you. Depth. That's what allows you to rise without falling every time life tests you. Discipline means you sacrifice today for the future you're building. Discipline means you don't eat everything you crave. You don't buy everything you want. You don't waste time on everything that entertains you. Discipline says, I'm not living for right now. I'm living for what I'm becoming. It's painful in the moment, but it's priceless in the long run. You know what destroys most rebuilds? It's not failure. It's inconsistency. It's people starting and stopping, building and quitting, laying bricks and then walking away when it gets hard. That inconsistency leaves cracks in your foundation. And cracks don't show up right away. You don't see them until the storm comes, and then it's too late. Discipline is what fills in those cracks before the storm even arrives. Discipline is what keeps you steady when life shakes you. I need you to stop saying, I'll try. No, discipline doesn't try. Discipline commits. Discipline doesn't ask if it's convenient. It shows up regardless. You have to decide that your rebuild is non-negotiable, that your new life is not optional. Every day, brick by brick, action by action, choice by choice, discipline becomes the structure that holds it all together. It's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. You will fall, but discipline makes you get back up. You will get tired, but discipline won't let you stay down. You will face resistance, but discipline will remind you why you started in the first place. So if you really want to rebuild this time, if you're done with temporary changes and short-lived progress, then stop leaning on motivation and start building with discipline. Make discipline your foundation. And no matter what life throws at you, you will not collapse again. That's how you rebuild and make it last. When you make up your mind to rebuild yourself, you got to look around and ask one serious question. Who's in my circle? Who's walking with me on this journey? Because no matter how strong your vision is, no matter how much discipline you're putting into the foundation, if the people around you are tearing at the walls while you're trying to build, you're never going to stand tall. You cannot rebuild yourself surrounded by breakers. You need builders. Think about it. Every construction site has a crew. The architect draws the plan, but the crew carries it out. They lift, they dig, they hammer. They lay brick after brick. They're all working toward one vision, one structure, one goal. But imagine if half the crew was working against you. If while you're trying to raise a wall, somebody else keeps knocking it down. Imagine if you're pouring concrete and somebody keeps adding water until it's too weak to hold. That's what some of you are dealing with in your life. You're putting in effort. You're working on discipline. You're trying to build something strong, but the people around you are undoing the very thing you're building. And you keep wondering why it feels like you're making no progress. You got to be honest with yourself. Some of the people you're holding on to were part of the collapse. They were there when it all came down. And instead of helping you back up, they laughed, they criticized, they disappeared. Or worse, they pulled you down with them. But here you are trying to rebuild with the same ones who helped destroy you. That doesn't make sense. You cannot rebuild with breakers. Builders are different. Builders don't let you stay in your pity. Builders don't feed your excuses. Builders see the potential in you even when you're surrounded by rubble. Builders challenge you, not because they hate you, but because they love you enough to push you past your limits. A builder will call you out when you're slipping, will hold you accountable when you get lazy, will remind you of your vision when you forget why you started. Builders add bricks. Breakers throw stones. And you got to decide who's getting access to your life. I know it's hard because some of those breakers are people you've known for years. Some of them share your bloodline. Some of them share your history. But history can't build your future. Loyalty to the wrong people will cost you the life you're trying to rebuild. Sometimes the hardest part of rebuilding isn't the work itself. It's letting go of the people who refuse to grow with you. Ask yourself this. When you talk about your goals, do they laugh or do they listen? When you say you're making changes, do they doubt you or do they support you? When you try to elevate, Do they pull you higher or do they drag you lower? That answer will tell you whether you're surrounded by builders or breakers. I'm telling you, you need people who are not intimidated by your rebuild. You need people who clap when you win, not people who get quiet because they're jealous. You need people who will stay up with you while you grind, not people who tell you to relax and waste time with them. You need people who respect your discipline, not people who tempt you to break it. Builders will celebrate your progress. Breakers will resent it. And listen, sometimes it's not about them being bad people. They're just not aligned with your vision. They're comfortable where they are, and that's fine for them. But you can't afford to shrink yourself to fit into their comfort zone. You're trying to rebuild something powerful, something lasting, something that requires a higher standard. If they can't or won't rise with you, you gotta love them from a distance. There's a reason why in construction, the wrong crew can cause a building to collapse. A builder knows how to reinforce, how to support, how to make sure the weight is carried evenly. A breaker just creates weakness. And weakness in your circle will always show up in your results. That's why you can't just rebuild yourself. You gotta rebuild your circle. Stop trying to carry dead weight into your new season. Stop trying to convince people to believe in you when they've already shown you they don't. Stop trying to make everyone fit into a vision that was only given to you. Builders will show up on their own. Builders will recognize the vision and pick up a hammer without you begging them. Builders will match your energy and multiply your effort. That's the kind of circle you need if you want your rebuild to stand strong. So if you're serious about this journey, I need you to do a circle check. Identify the builders. Cut off the breakers, protect your vision. Because the truth is, no matter how disciplined you are, no matter how hard you work, if you keep letting breakers in, your rebuild will never rise higher than their destruction. Your future is too valuable to waste on people who don't build. Surround yourself with builders and watch your life rise. When you decide to rebuild yourself, you have to understand something most people don't want to hear. It's not a quick fix. It's not a 2-week grind. It's not a 30-day challenge. It's not something you do for a little while until you get tired. Rebuilding is a lifetime commitment. It's a process that demands consistency, patience, and sacrifice. Too many people start strong, but they quit halfway because they thought the process would be easier, faster, more glamorous. They get discouraged when progress doesn't show up overnight. But hear me, anything worth having is going to cost you time, effort, and perseverance. If you're not willing to stay committed until the vision stands tall, you're going to keep rebuilding the same broken walls over and over again. When you look at skyscrapers, you see beauty, power, and strength. But what you don't see is the years of planning, the months of labor, the long nights of construction when nobody was clapping, nobody was watching, nobody was posting about it. You just see the finished product. And that's the trap. People want the finished product without enduring the process. But rebuilding yourself is no different than building that skyscraper. It takes years, not days. It takes patience when you want speed. It takes persistence when you feel exhausted. And it takes faith when you can't see the outcome yet. You gotta stop quitting every time it gets hard. You gotta stop walking away because it's taking longer than you thought. If it was easy, everybody would have a strong rebuild. If it was quick, everybody would be standing tall. But it's not easy. It's not quick. That's why so many stay stuck in the rubble. They didn't have the endurance. They didn't stay committed long enough to see the vision come alive. And I know you've had moments where you said, what's the point? I've been working. I've been grinding. I've been trying, and I don't see results. But that's the test. That's where most people give up, right before the breakthrough. See, the vision takes time to manifest. The seeds take time to grow roots before you ever see a sprout. Just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not working. Just because you don't see progress yet doesn't mean progress isn't happening. You have to trust the process enough to stay committed even when it looks like nothing's moving. Commitment is doing it when it's boring. Commitment is showing up when the excitement is gone. Commitment is laying the brick today and another brick tomorrow and another brick the next day, even when the wall doesn't look any higher. Commitment is believing that if you keep stacking bricks, eventually the vision in your head will become the structure in your life. Don't fool yourself. There will be days when you're tired, when you're drained, when quitting seems easier continuing. But you didn't come this far to stop in the middle. You didn't survive the rubble. You didn't clear the foundation. You didn't build discipline. You didn't cut off the breakers just to quit before you see the finish. You owe it to yourself to stay in it until the vision stands tall. Remember this, construction zones don't look pretty. They're messy. They're chaotic. They're loud. They look nothing like the polished building you'll see at the end. That's your life right now. It may not look pretty. It may not look organized. It may not look like what you envision. But that doesn't mean it's not coming together. Don't judge the rebuild in the middle of the process. Judge it when it's finished. And understand this. There is no finished. When it comes to rebuilding yourself, you don't stop growing. You don't stop learning. You don't stop improving. This isn't about hitting one goal and retiring from the work. It's about creating a lifestyle where you're constantly committed to the vision, constantly adjusting, constantly upgrading, constantly building higher. The moment you stop committing is the moment the cracks begin to form again. You got to be relentless. You got to decide that quitting is not an option. You got to be so locked into the vision that you're willing to endure whatever it takes, however long it takes, no matter how hard it gets. Because when that structure finally rises, when your life finally reflects the work you put in, when the vision finally stands tall, all the sleepless nights, all the sacrifices, all the discipline, all the patience will be worth it. So don't just start the rebuild. Stay with it. Commit until it stands tall. Commit until it speaks for itself. Commit until the life you dreamed of is the life you're living. And when you finally get there, you'll know every ounce of struggle was worth it.